If you have ever loved someone with an avoidant attachment style, you already know the specific kind of confusion that comes with it. The push and pull. The moments where they're completely present and then suddenly, without warning, completely gone. The way they can make you feel like the most important person in the room, and then turn around and act like you're barely an afterthought. The way you're always slightly off balance with them, always trying to read between lines they refuse to write clearly, always wondering if what you're feeling between you is real, or if you're building something in your head out of crumbs they didn't even mean to leave you. And somewhere underneath all of that confusion, there's a question you keep coming back to, a question that won't leave you alone no matter how many times you try to logic your way out of it. Do they actually love me? Not like me. Not find me interesting or convenient or comfortable to be around. Actually love me. The real kind. The deep kind. The kind that means something. And that question is what this is about. Because the answer is more complicated than yes or no. The answer is yes, and that yes comes with something underneath it that they are actively, deliberately hiding from you. Something that explains everything. The distance, the walls, the way they can look at you sometimes like you are everything, and then retreat like you are nothing. All of it connects back to what they are hiding. And once you understand what that is, nothing about them will confuse you the same way again. So let's start there, with what's actually happening inside an avoidant who is in love with you. They remember everything. You mentioned something once, casually, in the middle of a conversation that had already moved on to 3 other things. You weren't even sure they were fully listening. And then weeks later, out of nowhere, they brought it back. The exact detail, the exact thing you said, like they had been holding it this whole time, carefully, the way you only hold on to something that matters to you, the way you only remember something when the person who said it never really leaves your mind. And you noticed that. You felt it land because there was something in that moment that didn't match the version of them they've been showing you, the version that seems unbothered. The version that keeps just enough distance to make you question where you stand. The version that never quite gives you enough to feel certain about anything. That moment didn't come from that version of them. That moment came from somewhere else. From something underneath. From whatever it is they've been working so hard to make sure you never fully see. Here's what I want you to understand before anything else. You're not imagining it. That feeling you get sometimes, that quiet certainty that there's more happening beneath the surface than what they're showing you, that's not wishful thinking. That's not you projecting what you want onto someone who isn't really there. That's you picking up on something real, something that's actually there. Something an avoidant feels deeply, completely, in ways that would probably shock you if they ever let it out. Which they won't. Not easily. Not without understanding why they're hiding it in the first place. So that's what this is about. Not just what they're feeling, but why they're hiding it. What the hiding costs both of you, and what you're supposed to do when you're in love with someone whose love for you is real, but completely trapped inside them. The avoidant is in love with you. Not a little, not casually, not in the easy surface-level way that doesn't cost anything. They are deeply, overwhelmingly, sometimes frighteningly in love with you in ways they have probably never experienced before. The feeling they have when you're around is not small. It is not something they can manage or set aside or keep in a neat, controlled corner of themselves. It is the kind of feeling that takes over everything. That colors the whole day, that makes ordinary moments with you feel like something they want to hold on to and keep. When you laugh, something happens in them they can't control. When you're hurting, something in them responds immediately, before they've even made a decision to care. When something good happens in their life, you are the first person they want to tell. When something is funny, your face appears in their mind before anyone else's. And when they are alone, in the quiet, in the space where there's nothing to distract them, you are there. You are always there. Constant, present, taking up more space in them than they are comfortable admitting even to themselves. This is not a small thing. This is not a casual attachment they could walk away from without consequence. An avoidant falling deeply in love is actually a rarer and more intense experience than most people realize, because the same walls that keep people out also mean that almost no one ever gets through. But you got through. Something about you broke past the defenses they have spent years building. And now they are sitting with a feeling they have never had to sit with before. A feeling this big and this real and this out of their control. And they have no idea what to do with it. So they hide it. Not because the love isn't real, not because you don't matter, but because what lives right underneath the love is something more complicated than the love itself. And understanding what that is, understanding what is underneath the love that makes them hide the love, is the key to understanding everything about why they behave the way they do. Here is what the avoidant is hiding underneath the love. They are hiding the gap, the distance between how much they feel and how little they can show. And this gap is not something they are choosing the way someone might choose to play it cool. This gap is the result of years, sometimes decades, of learning that showing what you feel leads to pain, that needing someone gives them the ability to hurt you. That vulnerability is not safety, it is exposure. And exposure leads to the thing they have organized their entire inner life around avoiding: getting hurt. The avoidant grew up, in most cases, in an environment where emotional needs were either ignored, unpredictably met, or came with strings attached, where love felt conditional, where showing that you needed something either got you nothing or got you something that cost too much. And so they learned, quietly, over time, in the way children learn things without being taught them directly. They learned that the safest version of themselves was the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't need too much, the one who could handle things alone, the one who kept their feelings in a place where no one could reach them and use them against them. And that worked. For a long time that worked. Until you. Because you got close enough that the strategy stopped holding. Close enough that the feeling broke through the management of it. Close enough that they couldn't keep you at the comfortable distance where you wouldn't have real power over them. And now they are in love with you, which means they need you, which means you have exactly the kind of power they have spent their whole life making sure no one would ever have. And they are terrified. Not of you. Let that be clear. Not of you as a person. They are terrified of what loving you means. They are terrified of the need itself. They are terrified of the fact that if you left, if you hurt them, if you decided they weren't enough, it would not be something they could recover from the way they have recovered from smaller losses. Because this is not a smaller loss. You are not a smaller loss. And they know that. So they hide the love to manage the terror. They keep the depth of what they feel concealed, because showing it would mean admitting the need. And admitting the need would mean giving you the power. And giving you the power would mean standing in exactly the vulnerability they have been running from their entire lives. That is what they are hiding underneath the love. Not indifference, not confusion, terror. The most specific, intimate, deeply personal terror that comes from loving someone more than you know how to handle. But the hiding fails. This is the part you need to pay attention to, because this is where you get to see what's actually real. The avoidant is hiding the depth of what they feel, but they cannot hide it completely. Because love this size does not stay contained. It leaks. It surfaces in the small things, in the unguarded moments, in the behaviors that contradict everything their distance is trying to tell you. And those moments are where the truth is. They show up for you in ways they don't show up for anyone else. This is one of the most consistent things about an avoidant who is genuinely in love. And it is one of the things people closest to the situation miss, because they are focused on what the avoidant isn't doing. But pay attention to what they are doing. They help you with things they claim to hate doing. They rearrange things in their life to accommodate you, while insisting to themselves and everyone else that they don't rearrange their life for anyone. They make exceptions for you that they do not make for other people. They show up when you need them in ways that are completely inconsistent with the unbothered, self-contained version of themselves they are trying to present to you. That inconsistency is not an accident. That inconsistency is the love breaking through the hiding. Because they cannot help showing up for you, the love compels it before the fear can stop it. And every time they do something for you that they claim they don't do for anyone, they are showing you something they are simultaneously trying to convince you isn't there. They get jealous in ways they have no right to get jealous. They have never claimed you. They have never made the relationship fully clear or fully official in ways that would justify possessiveness. But the jealousy comes anyway. You can feel it when you mention other people. You can see it in the way they get quiet, in the way they ask questions that seem casual but are clearly not casual, in the way their energy shifts when someone else is paying attention to you. They cannot fully control the jealousy, because jealousy is an emotional response that surfaces before the brain can decide whether to let it show. And the jealousy is proof. Jealousy that's specific and that real does not come from someone who is indifferent. It comes from someone who is deeply invested and absolutely terrified of losing what they have never fully admitted they have. They protect you, without being asked, without making a show of it. When someone says something unkind about you when you are not there, they defend you. When they sense something or someone might not be good for you, they find a way to let you know. When you are in a situation that feels uncertain or unsafe, something in them orients immediately toward making sure you are okay. Protection is one of the deepest expressions of love that exists, and it is one of the hardest things to fake. When the avoidant protects you, They are showing you something from a place so deep inside them that the fear doesn't get there fast enough to stop it. They remember everything you tell them, every small thing, every detail you mentioned once and forgot you mentioned, every update you gave them on something you were going through weeks ago. They track your life with an attention and a care that is completely at odds with the emotional distance they are maintaining. And you cannot remember everything about someone unless they are always on your mind. You cannot track someone's life with that kind of detail unless they matter to you in a way that has no off switch. All of these things are the love leaking through. All of these things are the avoidant showing you, despite everything they are doing to prevent it, exactly how real and exactly how deep what they feel for you actually is. Now here is why they won't just say it. Here is why, even knowing all of this, even feeling all of this, the avoidant cannot simply open their mouth and tell you what is true. They are afraid that saying it out loud will create something they cannot sustain. Saying the words, saying I love you, saying you matter to me more than anyone, saying I think about you all the time, those words carry weight. They carry expectation. They carry the implicit promise that the person saying them is going to show up in ways that match what the words mean. And the avoidant knows, with a painful and specific self-awareness, that they struggle to show up in those ways. Not because they don't want to, but because the very closeness that love requires is the thing that triggers every alarm system they have ever built inside themselves. So they stay quiet. They keep the love behind the wall, because they would rather you think they don't care than have you see how much they care, and then watch them fail to be what caring that much should make someone. They are afraid that showing you the depth of what they feel will raise your expectations to a level that makes losing you inevitable. Right now, with the feelings hidden, you might be staying. You might be accepting the limited version of them they are able to offer, the inconsistency and the distance and the emotional walls, because you are not entirely sure how invested they are. But if you really knew how deep this goes for them, you would expect that depth to translate into behavior. And when it didn't translate the way it should, you would leave with a clarity and a certainty that would be worse, somehow, than just leaving. And losing you with that kind of clarity feels more final than any other kind of loss. They are afraid that the moment they stop hiding, they will lose the only thing protecting them from being completely at your mercy. The hiding creates the illusion of control. As long as they are managing how much they show you, they can tell themselves they are managing how much they feel. They can maintain the fiction that they are in control of this, that they could walk away if they needed to, that they are choosing this rather than being pulled into it helplessly. But if they stop hiding, if they let you see all of it, the fiction collapses, they are exposed. Fully, with no protection between their feeling and your response to it. And standing that exposed in front of another person is the thing that at the deepest level, the avoidant has decided they cannot survive. And underneath all of it, underneath every specific fear, is the one they would never say out loud, even if they were saying everything else. They are afraid that if you see the full picture, not just the love, but the damage that coexists with the love, you will leave not because they pushed you away, but because you looked clearly and decided they were too broken to be worth staying for. Right now, there is ambiguity. Right now, you might be staying partly because you sense something that keeps you hoping. But if they showed you everything, showed you that yes, the love is real, and yes, they are also fundamentally limited in their capacity to act on it, you would have perfect clarity. And clarity, for the avoidant, is more frightening than confusion, because confusion keeps people. Clarity lets them go. Now here is the part that is hardest to hear. The hiding is destroying the relationship they are trying to protect. Every single defense the avoidant has built to protect themselves from the pain of losing you is actively creating the conditions that are going to make them lose you. And they know this, on some level. They know it, and they cannot stop it, which is its own specific kind of suffering. Think about what the hiding does to you. You are in a relationship with someone who, as we have now established, is deeply in love with you, and you feel unloved. You feel like you are more invested than they are. You feel like you are giving more than you are receiving. You feel like you are always the one reaching and they are always the one pulling back. You feel like you cannot get a clear read on where you stand, and the uncertainty of that is exhausting in a way that is hard to explain to people who have not experienced it. You are questioning yourself constantly. You are wondering if you are asking too much or expecting too much, or if there is something about you that makes being loved openly by this person impossible. None of that is true, but you feel all of it because the love is hidden, because the thing that would resolve the uncertainty, the simple act of them showing you what they feel, is the thing they cannot bring themselves to do. And over time, that feeling of being unloved by someone you love is one of the most powerful reasons a person finally decides to leave. Not anger, not betrayal, not a dramatic falling out. Just the quiet accumulation of feeling like you don't matter enough to be shown that you matter. That slow erosion of hope until one day you wake up and realize you have spent too long waiting for something that keeps not coming. The hiding is also preventing the one thing that could actually help the avoidant get better. Intimacy, real intimacy. The kind that grows when two people let themselves be seen by each other. The kind that creates enough safety that fear starts to lose its grip. The kind that, if the avoidant allowed themselves to experience it, might actually give them a reason to face the terror instead of managing it. But intimacy requires vulnerability, and the avoidant is hiding. And the hiding prevents the intimacy. And without the intimacy, there is no experience of safety deep enough to challenge the belief that vulnerability always leads to pain. They are caught in a loop that feeds itself. The fear creates the hiding. The hiding prevents the intimacy. The absence of intimacy means the fear never gets challenged. The unchallenged fear creates more hiding. And the relationship slowly suffocates inside that loop while both of you feel the loss of something that was never fully allowed to exist. And perhaps most painfully, the hiding is preventing the avoidant from fully confronting what they are doing to themselves and to you. As long as they are minimizing the relationship to themselves, as long as they are telling themselves it is not that serious and they are not that invested and losing you would not be that bad, they can avoid facing the truth that they are destroying something precious through their inability to be present in it. If they admitted the love, they would have to admit the stakes. And admitting the stakes would force them to look at their own behavior with an honesty they are not yet capable of. So they keep hiding, and the relationship keeps paying the price. There are moments when the hiding breaks. There are moments when what they have been holding finally surfaces, and for a second you get to see all of it, unfiltered, real. The full depth of what they feel, without the management and the control, and the careful distance. These moments are usually not planned. They are not the result of a decision to finally be honest. They are slips, cracks in the wall that happen when the wall requires more energy to maintain than they currently have. When they are exhausted, when they are overwhelmed, when something has happened that has flooded them emotionally and their defenses are too depleted to hold. In those moments, something comes through. They tell you that they think about you all the time. They tell you that they don't know what they would do if you left. They look at you in a way that removes all ambiguity. They say something that is so unguarded and so true that it changes the air between you. And then they come back to themselves, and they retreat, and they minimize what they said, or they disappear for a few days, or they come back acting like the moment didn't happen, and you are left holding this glimpse of something real that they immediately try to take back. These moments are not accidents, they are not mistakes. They are the truth surfacing despite every effort to keep it submerged. And the fact that they retreat from those moments so quickly is not evidence that what came through wasn't real. It is evidence of how frightening the real thing is to them, how exposed they feel when it comes out, how fast the fear moves in to shut down what the love briefly opened. There is also the moment of loss. The moment when they are about to lose you is sometimes the moment when everything they have been hiding finally comes out. When the ending is no longer theoretical and distant but real and immediate. When you have finally reached your limit and they can feel it. When the consequence of hiding is suddenly the loss of the actual thing they were hiding to protect. In that moment, the panic can break through the defense in ways nothing else breaks through. They finally say the things they should have been saying all along. They finally show you what was real all along. But here is the painful truth about that moment. A confession that only comes when someone is walking out the door is a confession that comes too late to change the patterns that drove them to the door. The love being real does not mean the capacity is suddenly there. The words finally arriving does not mean the behavior will follow. And you are allowed to hear what they say in that moment, to let it mean something, to feel the bittersweet reality of having been right all along about what was there, and still decide that coming too late means it came too late. There is also the possibility that the hiding never breaks at all. This is the hardest thing to say and one of the most important. Some avoidants love deeply and silently for the entire duration of a relationship and never find a way to let it out. The hiding holds, the fear wins, and the love stays trapped inside them while the relationship slowly ends, for reasons that could have been prevented if the love had simply been allowed to show itself. And they carry that, they carry you. Long after things have ended, in the quiet moments, in the space before sleep, you are still there for them the way you were always there for them. You become the one who got away, the one who mattered more than they were ever able to say, the relationship they look back on and understand too late what it was. And you will have moved on without ever fully knowing how much you mattered. without ever getting the confirmation that the connection you felt was mutual, without the closure of being told, clearly and directly, that what you sensed was real. That is a tragedy. A quiet, private, entirely preventable tragedy. And it happens more often than it should. So what do you do with all of this? What do you do when you are in love with someone whose love for you is real, but completely inaccessible? When you can sense it and occasionally glimpse it, but cannot get sustained access to it? When knowing it is there changes how you feel, but doesn't change what you are experiencing? The first thing is this. Trust what you are sensing while refusing to make what you are sensing enough. You are probably right. The depth you feel between you is probably real. The moments that seemed like more than what they admitted to are probably showing you something true. The love is probably there in ways that would confirm everything you have been hoping. And knowing that, holding that, can be a comfort. But comfort is not partnership. Sensing someone loves you is not the same as being in a relationship where love shows up in ways you can actually feel and rely on. Hidden love, love that stays concealed behind fear, love that cannot translate into consistent presence and vulnerability, and the basic willingness to let you know where you stand. That love cannot build anything. It cannot meet your needs. It cannot give you the relationship you are looking for, no matter how real the feeling behind it is. So you trust it and you do not let it be enough. The second thing is to create space for them to be honest, without forcing the honesty. You can be direct with them. You can tell them where you are. You can share what you feel without making it a demand that they match you immediately. You can create the conditions where vulnerability feels possible rather than threatening. You can be the proof that opening up does not have to lead to pain. And sometimes that works. Sometimes an avoidant who has never experienced someone staying steady while they struggled with vulnerability discovers slowly that it is possible to open up without being destroyed by it. Sometimes the safety you create is enough to start loosening the grip of the fear. But you have to be honest with yourself about what you are seeing. If you create the conditions for honesty and the honesty still doesn't come, that is information. If you make it safe and they are still hiding, that is not a problem of conditions. That is a problem of capacity. And there is a crucial difference between someone who is not revealing themselves because they don't feel safe enough, and someone who is not revealing themselves because they are not yet capable of it, regardless of safety. You cannot love someone into capacity they don't have. You cannot wait long enough or be patient enough or create enough safety that someone becomes capable of something they are not yet capable of. That capacity comes from their own work, their own willingness to face what they have been running from, their own commitment to getting to the other side of the fear, and that work is theirs to do, not yours. The third thing is to set a timeline and hold it, not a timeline you announce to them as a threat, a timeline you set for yourself privately, clearly, with honesty about what you need. How long are you willing to be in a relationship where you sense love but cannot feel it? How long are you willing to operate without clarity about where you stand? How long are you willing to give someone the chance to show you what you know is there before you accept that they are not going to show you? That timeline is different for everyone. There is no right answer. But there has to be a timeline. Because without one, hope becomes the thing that keeps you in a situation indefinitely. And hope without movement is not hope. It is waiting. And waiting for someone to become capable of loving you openly is not a strategy. It is a way of letting your life be organized around someone else's unresolved fear. Here is the final truth. The avoidant being deeply in love with you while hiding it is real, and it is also not enough. Both of those things are true at the same time. The love is real, the feeling is real, the way you occupy their mind and their heart is real. The depth of what they feel in those quiet moments when they let themselves feel it is as real as anything you have ever experienced in another person. None of that is something you imagined. None of that is wishful thinking. You sensed it because it was there, and it has always been there, and in another life, in a version of them that had done the work they needed to do, it would have shown itself to you every day in ways that left no room for doubt. But they are also, right now, not capable of giving you the relationship that love should produce. They are not capable, right now, of translating feeling into consistent presence, of turning what they feel inside into what you need to experience on the outside, of taking the love that is real and letting it become something you can actually live inside of, rather than just sense from a distance. And that incapacity is not your problem to solve. It is not your job to excavate their feelings for them. It is not your responsibility to wait indefinitely while they figure out how to be brave enough to show you what they feel. Their damage is theirs. Their fear is theirs. Their patterns are theirs. And the work required to change those patterns, the real work, the kind that actually shifts something deep inside a person, that is work only they can do and only they can decide to do. You deserve to be loved by someone who can show you that they love you, not someone who loves you in secret and hopes you sense it, not someone who feels everything and shows nothing and leaves you guessing about whether you matter, not someone whose love for you is real but completely trapped behind a fear they haven't decided to face yet. You deserve someone who is brave enough to let you see what you mean to them, someone who can say it and show it and mean it and back it up with the kind of presence that makes you feel certain. Someone whose love does not require you to read between lines or interpret signals or hold on to glimpses of something real that they immediately tried to take back. The avoidant may love you more than you know. They probably do. But love that stays hidden is love that cannot reach you. And love that cannot reach you cannot give you what you came here for. Let them do their work. Let them face what they need to face. Hope that they do, genuinely, because they deserve to get to the other side of the fear as much as anyone does. But do not hold your life still while you wait to find out if they will. You are allowed to go find the love that is already brave enough to be seen. And here is something else worth saying before we close this out, something that does not get said enough in conversations about this kind of relationship. The avoidant is suffering too. This is not said to create sympathy that overrides your needs. This is not said to give you a reason to stay when staying is no longer serving you. It is said because it is true, and because understanding it fully changes the way you see the whole situation. Because when you understand that they are not withholding from you from a place of power, when you understand that the distance is not confidence, but fear wearing the costume of confidence, when you understand that every time they pull away they are not choosing themselves over you, but rather running from something inside themselves that has nothing to do with your worth, something shifts. The story stops being about whether you are enough and starts being about whether they are capable. And those are two completely different questions with two completely different answers. You are enough. You have always been enough. The problem has never been you. The problem has never been that you asked for too much, or loved too loudly, or needed things that were unreasonable. The problem is that they are carrying something old, something that was put inside them long before you arrived. A set of beliefs about love and safety and vulnerability that were built in environments where those beliefs made sense, where those beliefs were actually protective, where closing off was the only rational response to what was happening around them. And those beliefs calcified over time into something automatic, something that activates before they can think about it, something that feels like self-preservation, even when what it is actually doing is destroying the very thing they most want to keep. They did not choose this. That matters. They did not sit down one day and decide to be someone who loves deeply and shows nothing. They did not consciously build a wall and put you on the other side of it as a statement about your value. The wall was built before you. The wall was built for someone else in response to something else, in a time when it was the only tool available. And now it is just there, between them and everyone. Between them and you. Standing in the place where openness should be. Understanding that does not mean accepting it forever. Understanding that does not mean making yourself smaller to fit inside the space their fear allows. But it does mean you can stop taking it personally in the way that has probably been eating at you. The way they love you and hide it is not a verdict on you. It is a portrait of them. It is a window into what they are still carrying and what they have not yet been able to put down. And the real question underneath all of this, is not whether they love you. We have established that. The question is whether they are willing to do what it takes to become someone who can love you in the open. Someone who can take the feeling that is already there and stop being afraid of what showing it will cost them. Someone who can choose the relationship over the protection of the defended self they have been maintaining their whole life. That willingness is not something you can give them. You cannot love them into it. You cannot make yourself so perfectly safe and perfectly understanding and perfectly accommodating that their fear finally decides it is no longer needed. Fear does not work that way. Fear that is rooted this deep, fear that has been doing its job this long, does not dissolve in response to someone else's goodness. It dissolves in response to the person who carries it deciding, usually through their own pain and their own reckoning, that the cost of maintaining it is finally too high. That reckoning usually comes from loss, not the threat of loss, not the sense that loss is somewhere on the horizon. Actual loss, the relationship ending, you being gone, the silence where you used to be, the absence of the person they convinced themselves they did not need as much as they needed you. That is usually what finally cracks something open in a person who has been closed this long. Not because pain is a teacher they sought out, but because pain is sometimes the only voice loud enough to be heard over the noise of the fear. And by the time that reckoning comes, by the time the loss is real enough to finally break through, you are already gone. You are already building something new somewhere else. You are already in the process of healing from a relationship that gave you glimpses of something beautiful and never let you fully hold it. And they are sitting with the understanding that arrives too late. The clarity that comes after the chance to use it has already passed. This is not said to be cruel. This is not said to make the avoidant the villain of this story. It is said because it is the most common way this story ends. And knowing how it most commonly ends is important information for you, because you are still here. You are still in it. And you have something they will not have when it is over, which is the chance to make a decision while the relationship still exists, to be decided about. So make the decision with clear eyes, not from the place of hurt that makes you want to leave just to feel like you have some control, not from the place of hope that makes you want to stay regardless of what you are actually experiencing, from the clear, honest, grounded place that looks at everything, the love that is real, and the limitations that are real, and the cost to you that is real, and makes a choice that you can stand behind. A choice that is about your life and what you need it to look like. A choice that takes them seriously as a person, while also taking yourself seriously as a person who deserves things they are currently not receiving. Because here is what nobody tells you about loving someone who hides their love. It is lonely in a very specific way. It is not the loneliness of being alone. It is the loneliness of being with someone and still feeling alone. Of being in a relationship and still feeling unseen. Of sensing that someone loves you while being unable to feel loved by them. That specific loneliness is one of the most disorienting experiences a person can have. Because you cannot explain it easily, because from the outside the relationship exists, and therefore the loneliness should not. But it does. It lives in every moment where they could have reached for you and didn't. In every conversation that stopped just short of real. In every time you caught a glimpse of something true, and then watched them close the door on it. You are allowed to be done with that loneliness. You are allowed to decide that sensing love from a distance is not the same as being loved. That potential is not the same as reality. That who someone could be if they did the work is not the same as who they are right now, today, in the relationship you are actually living. You are allowed to grieve the version of them that almost showed up, the version that existed in those unguarded moments, the version that remembered everything you said and showed up in ways that contradicted their own distance, and looked at you sometimes like you were the only real thing in the room. That version is worth grieving. That version was showing you something true. And it is a real loss that the fear in them kept that version from being the one you got to keep. Grieve it. Let it mean something. Let yourself feel the specific sadness of loving someone who loves you back, but cannot find a way across the distance between the feeling and the showing of it. And then let yourself go. Not in anger, not in bitterness, not with a story about them being broken or unworthy or incapable of love, because none of those things are true. With the clear and honest acknowledgement that love being real is not always the same as love being enough. That two people can feel something genuine for each other and still not be able to build something that works. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both of you is to stop waiting for a bridge that they are not yet able to build. Go find the love that does not require translation, the love that does not make you wonder, the love that is not hidden behind fear but is instead offered freely, openly, with a kind of consistency that makes you feel certain, rather than constantly guessing. The love that shows up in the ordinary moments, and the difficult moments, and the quiet moments, without you having to read between lines, or hold on to glimpses, or convince yourself that what you sense must be real, even though you cannot feel it. You deserve to feel it. Not sense it, not interpret it, not piece it together from behavioral evidence and unguarded moments, and the way they looked at you that one time when they forgot to look away. Feel it. Directly, clearly. Every day, that is not too much to ask. That is the minimum that love should be. And somewhere out there is a person who already knows how to give you that, who does not need to lose you to understand your value, who does not need a reckoning to decide that loving you openly is worth the vulnerability it costs, who has done enough of their own work, or is doing enough of it alongside you, that the fear does not win every time it shows up. Go find that person, or let that person find you. But stop building your life in the waiting room of someone else's potential. Stop measuring yourself against the standard of what their fear allows. Stop making yourself the proof that you are worth loving openly when you were never the one who needed to prove it. The avoidant loves you, deeply, quietly, in the hidden places where the fear cannot quite reach the feeling, but you deserve a love that lives in the open. Go find it.